Unschoolers find subjects hiding everywhere. I know it's hard to visualize how learning happens without curriculum. How do they learn subjects when all they do is play? How do they learn what they need? So I have the perfect example for you from our beach trip this weekend. It's June in Texas, to say the least. It's hot. So my unschooled daughter, now grown, her 8-year-old son and his best friend, and I were off to Port Aransas, the four of us. I have the perfect example of how learning happens from our encounter with a Portuguese Man-O-War. I want to use this little jelly as an example of how it can be the portal to all the learning your kids will need. But if this is your first time here, welcome. If not, thanks for coming back. Go ahead and subscribe at your favorite podcast platform, or you can always listen to any of the Unschooling Mom to Mom podcasts over at the unschoolingmomtomom.com website. Each week, I'll pop into your ears to help you see that unschooling works. Just something quick, because I know you're busy. Reassurance, practical tips, a little guidance from someone who's done this. Unschooling is not theoretical for me. I'm past the stage of crossing my fingers and hoping this works. My own grown unschoolers are 34, 32, and 29, all happy with their childhoods that did not include curriculum. They own homes and businesses, have college degrees and families, all those worries that keep you up at night. They were mine too, but none of those fears happened. It's all just left over from the conditioning you had with decades of school and society telling you, stay in line, don't get off the path, follow the directions. Instead of explore your curiosities, see where they take you, learn more about yourself, your interests, the world. So when we have a lot of fear like that, we still have a lot of deschooling to do. But I have a ton of resources to help you with deschooling or understanding unschooling better. So reach out and I can walk you through it. But back to my beach story. So we're in the water and Jackson, my grandson, thinks he sees some plastic trash floating by. We're only knee deep, so he starts moving toward it to fling it out of the water. The wave crashes and takes it under. Next thing we see it washing up onto the beach, and it is not plastic trash. It is a Portuguese Man-O-War. To be honest, I didn't realize that until I sent the photo to my husband and he told me it was actually a Portuguese Man-O-War. Honestly, I thought he might be being dramatic, so I wasn't terribly concerned. I grew up in Texas and we have had jellyfish washing up on the coast forever, but I wasn't that well informed about these creatures. Still, my lack of knowledge was showing when I posted it on Instagram and referred to it as a jellyfish. Stay with me because this all matters. So when my kids were growing up, we were forever bumping into little experiences like this. Tarantulas or snapping turtles crossing the road, solar or lunar eclipses, injured barn owls. I mean, it wasn't always animal related, but in my house, it often seemed to be. We'd encounter something randomly, and then we'd want to know more about it. Back then, we didn't have immediate access like we do now. Googling our questions on our phones can open up deeper dives and all sorts of information. Why I'm bringing this up? Because these are perfect examples of how unschooling works. When you have a curriculum, even gentle, sugar-coated, predetermined lesson plans, you miss the cool random opportunities that provide the learning you're so afraid they're going to miss. And your fear makes you cling to all this totally irrelevant information that the kids have no interest in. So it doesn't stick and they mentally wander off. And then you get frustrated because you have lots to do and you're trying to check this box. But with unschooling, you shift your priorities. Completing the curriculum isn't what matters. Your real life, present moment with your kids takes the top spot for attention. And you can set aside your fears about gaps or people judging you or your kids or fear that you're ruining their chances for a successful adulthood. You can see the learning that's all along the path. Yours for the taking. No extra money. No browbeating to stay focused. So what about those subjects? Let's circle back to my beach weekend example. I want to show you that subjects were touched on just by living our life. Going to the beach, coming across this jellyfish. I know you're like, sure, marine life, science, check. But what about other subjects? And I want to reassure you, they're all there. Language arts is happening when we have some vocabulary expansion. Like they're not really called jellyfish, they aren't fish, they're not vertebrates. The correct term is jellies. So when you go to look up what you found on the beach, new words like tentacles and bell sacks or bladders or waves and currents. And, just to kind of riff off of that, how interesting is that word current? Like ocean current, electric current, current events, raisin like currents, all various uses of the same word. If you mention the word current, your kids might associate it with curry or cure. You don't have to think, okay, what are the homonyms or various uses of the word? But it can work its way into your life. Maybe not right at the moment, but over time, your child's vocabulary is expanding, all because they're making connections between words they've heard before and new words they're hearing now, all because you're having conversations that expand the vocabulary here and there. Maybe later on we'd talk more about it or wonder if that beautiful beached creature had a family or if they float alone solo, or maybe we'd make up a story about his life. Or is he a she? How would we know? Or maybe next time we go to the library, we notice a book about jellies or Portuguese Man-O-War, or simply see a graphic representation on the cover. Maybe myths or folklore, research, literature, more language arts. I might tell him when I posted this on Instagram, someone said these are called blue bottles, because that's what they call them in Australia. And my guess is he'd still be thinking, that's what I thought it was floating around, someone's plastic blue bottle. I could show him on a globe where Australia is and where Port Aransas is, and we could wonder if the same animals could live in such different places. Geography ponderings. As we're looking at this man-o-war in the sand, we're looking at his size, how many we're seeing now along the shoreline. We're eyeballing the length of some of those tentacles and realizing how easily it could be to get stung, even if you're several feet away from the floating part. We might wonder if the temperature of the day or the water affects whether they come to the shore. We notice the patterns and the shapes, all math. We talked about first aid options for stings and how some people believe things that aren't scientifically proven. We wonder who the predators are for the Portuguese Man-O-War, and we watch to see if the seagulls will risk the venom, or maybe they're immune, all playing with the scientific method in our heads. I started learning more about the Portuguese Man-O-War, and they're really fascinating. Did you know they're called a colony organism, multiple living beings merging together for survival? So it's not even an it, it's a they. And it produces its own gases to keep that bladder-like thing floating on the surface. And as I read more, I probably should have gotten the kids out of the water sooner when we saw several of these guys on the beach. Their venom sounds pretty awful. Almost sounds like it should have been included in a couple of horror stories or murder mysteries. If you know of any, let me know. See how subjects all weave through here. We didn't look up jellyfish ahead of the trip, and we didn't look it up afterward either. I may mention some of the things I found out or show Jackson the YouTube video I saw about a Portuguese Man-O-War, not to create a teachable moment, but more to share something that he might also find to be interesting. His learning is his choice to retain or not to retain. But when we remove the teaching part, the random manipulation to be sure the information has been conveyed and received, we stop doing that. So many more experiences are just interesting. It all becomes part of their life experiences, a growing pile of knowledge that they'll be able to tap into when anyone mentions something that reminds them of that beach trip and the marine life that was washing up ashore. No need for worksheets to remember that, or math calculations to make mental estimates. It all adds up. It all counts. One of the things I love to do, besides this podcast, is create PDFs and videos for my Creating Confidence membership group. I was exploring all the subjects that weave in when you discover a Portuguese Man-O-War in the Gulf of Mexico, because it seemed like a great way to show you how real life really does cover what you need. One little experience connecting to another It all adds together. So I created a one-page PDF for anyone who'd like it. I'll have it for free for you to download over at the website. I've included more examples of the subjects, not because you need them, but because sometimes it helps to see how they're always there. Then when you see something else, you can think about these and see the similarities. Or maybe it will just reassure you and keep you from buying that expensive and unnecessary curriculum. Or maybe you have to do a progress report for your state or your umbrella organization. So I've created some lists for you based on subjects. We do these kinds of things in my membership group all the time. So if you need more hand holding on learning and how it's happening and how unschooling works, you should join us. I'll help you. And so will the fabulous community that's over there. I'll put links in the show notes and links to the blog post so that you can get the PDF that I just made today for you. So that's it for me. I'll be back next week. Enjoy your kids, notice the learning, and don't waste money on that curriculum. I'll talk to you soon.